Hello dear readers and subscribers. A common question and practical issue almost all painters face at a certain point is the question how to finish those edges in a professional manner. Today we'll provide a definitive answer to this question with 3 key strategies and real-world examples from the high-end art world. Problematically, across the web, if we look for an answer for this question, the first pages on Google, the first results on Google, and also the videos here on YouTube, they all suggest the following 2 strategies. Either to continue the painting onto the edges, for instance, as those canvas wrap prints that you can order online, or to paint the edges in black or a uniform color that matches the painting. However, in the art world, this is almost never the case. If you enjoy painting as a hobby and want to simply finish those edges in a simple manner, then yes, you can paint them. However, for those of you who are pursuing a more professional career and want to enter the contemporary art world, you might consider one of the following 3 strategies. First and foremost, unframed, leaving the edges unpainted. This is perhaps the most easy and cheapest way to take care of the edges of your painting. You might even be surprised that this approach is very common in the art world, and artists such as Gerhard Richter or Louise Bonnet or Nicole Eisenman are doing this. But there is of course a little bit more to it. I do not recommend that you would use wooden stretchers that are very thin, of just 1 inch or depth or 2.5 centimeters depth, because then the artworks will feel very light and also a bit cheap. They will not be able to stand their ground in the gallery space. They will not have that presence we require. So therefore, if you go for this option, I strongly recommend you to use aluminium frames with at least 2 inches of depth or 4.5 centimeters. You can either go for a looser approach with some paint splatters on the side, such as the examples of Gerhard Richter and Nicole Eisenman, or you could go for a more controlled approach, having an almost perfectly straight line at the edge of the canvas by either using masking tape to protect the white edge or painting a bit more carefully around the edge, as is the case with the example of Laurent Prou. However, leaving the edges untouched does not mean that they always have to be white. Think of the example of Louise Bonnet, where the canvas is unprimed and therefore brown, or Michael Boremann's sites that show the toned imprimatura, the underpainting of raw sienna. Next, there is the framed strategy using wooden frames. This is perhaps one of my favorite strategies, as your painting will immediately be elevated to a more collectible professional object, giving it that high-end appearance. When using the right frames, you simply cannot go wrong. And some artists or some paintings are not able to look as professional without frames as others. Some are able to stand their ground, but others really need that frame to be a polished end result. It is a bit more expensive, however, this is the best and most risk-free option. And also bear in mind that you want to follow the current aesthetic trends when it comes to framing. In the past, they used to frame all the works with black frames, then it was all white frames, and today we predominantly see wooden frames, either blank wood or a darker walnut color. The third strategy is standing out with more creative artist frames. So to conclude, this is actually when you're framing your works, taking things a step further and really adding an almost sculptural dimension to your frames, which will make your works stand out in the crowd. Don't approach framing here as a task that needs to be done to finish those edges, but see it as an opportunity to distinguish yourself. This approach can actually be the #1 thing that you're known for, and that can be part of your artistic vision. Think of Emily Weiner's carved and often painted artist frames of glazed stoneware, and the playful use of walnut by Dabin Aan, in which the sides are used to depict his characteristic candles. Or what about Roy de Forest using his background as a sculptor to create increasingly complex frames to support the painted image? As is the case with Stephanie Temahir's ceramic sculptural motifs encapsulating her paintings. With Guadalupe Maraville, we see a similar approach, in which he places the series of devotional images in an almost otherworldly frame. It is safe to say that this approach requires a lot more skill than beyond the skills of the typical painter. It is also sometimes a risk, because there is a very thin line between creating frames, artist frames, that are very unique, original and refreshing, and also artist frames that look a bit sloppy and are a bit too crafty. However, when these experimental frames hold up in a gallery space, it is simply what sets them apart from the abundance of paintings on the market today. Think of the artists I mentioned. If not for their framing strategies, they would not be where they are now. And that's something to think about. Feel free to consult the free article version of this video and a lot more useful content on contemporaryartissue.com. Advice for artists, we have a lot of free resources for artists. And also please note how this very typical and practical issue is a very good example of how important it is to learn from the masters, to go out there and to experience art in the flesh by yourself, to understand what sets apart the high-end artist from the hobby artist, for instance. Because it is in these subtle differences that a seasoned collector will see you as a serious artist, or that you'll fall through the basket. So for these issues, don't go to Google necessarily, but go to the galleries. Not necessarily to copy what you see in the galleries, but to be inspired and also to feel for it yourself what you like best or what interests you the most. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Feel free to watch our video on one of the biggest trends in painting today next. Support us on Patreon and please consider subscribing to stay posted for more contemporary art. Bye.